morning, Congressman Mike Waltz. He's the Republican from Florida joining us now. Congressman, good morning. You voted no on the debt ceiling bill. Why don't you support it?
Well, actually, I give Speaker McCarthy a lot of credit in the sense that we started a few months ago with Biden and Schumer saying clean debt ceiling lift or nothing, and just telling us to eat it. So they got a lot of good policy. It's a step in the right direction in terms of getting out of control spending under control. But at the end of the day, in my view, the number one job of the federal government is to keep the country safe. And to accept Biden's defense budget, which is a cut when you incorporate inflation, it's a cut to defense just as China is on the march. They are coming like a freight train. We have a war in Europe. We have Iran racing towards a nuke and Kim Jong-un with his finger on the nuclear button. At the end of the day, I just couldn't support that going forward.
I'm glad you brought up China, Congressman. China says the U.S. should stop its, quote, dangerous acts of provocation after a Chinese fighter jet cut off an American spy plane over the South China Sea. We've all seen that video. It's remarkable. But it comes as U.S. officials say suspected Chinese spies who were posing as tourists tried to infiltrate U.S. military facilities in Alaska. It seems to me like tensions are rising. You agree?
Well, they are rising, and this is the Chinese Communist Party as a result of the Chinese Communist Party aggression. The plane that they buzzed very dangerously, our plane was flying in international waters, and this is just another example of their dangerous, aggressive behavior because what the whole world recognizes as international water, international airspace, the Chinese Communist Party says, no, it's ours. And we're either going to ram you, disrupt you, seize your ships, build islands that were reefs in international waters. We're going to take it by force if we have to. That's just a taste of the world order to come if Xi gets his way, which is to replace the United States as a global leader. Yet another reason I just could not swallow a defense cut right now. And the spying is the tip of the iceberg of what's going on. We've seen it pales in comparison what we saw with the Soviet Union to what's going on right now.
National Security Advisor Mike Waltz warned us 1 year ago. China's surveillance missions are the tip of the iceberg. And now.
Joining me now with more in this Sunday Morning Futures exclusive is National Security Advisor Michael Waltz. Michael, it's good to have you this morning. Welcome.
Thanks, Maria. Good to be with you.
Well, we've got a lot to get to. Let's first start with that meeting at the Vatican. What progress was done between President Trump and President Zelensky at the Vatican?
Well, Maria, let's just take a breath here and take a step back. How iconic that setting, that scene, that meeting is going to go down in the history books for President Trump to be a president of peace, to be talking peace and diplomacy in the Vatican, of all places, just before we were able to walk out and the president sat with world leaders, people of all faiths, hundreds of thousands in the crowd. And the thing he was determined to do was to talk to Zelensky face to face and talk about how we're going to get the largest land war in Europe to an end. Both sides have to want that. He's expressed his frustration with both sides, but yet his determination. And if you go back to, we're 100 days in, Maria, just 100 days ago, Biden and his team had no end in sight. This was an endless war. This was a meat grinder of men and material and national treasure that really he had never defined victory. And President Trump is determined to use diplomacy to bring this war to an end, to talk to both sides. And just in 100 days, we've had multiple rounds led by Secretary of State Rubio, by Ambassador Steve Witkoff in Saudi Arabia, and now in the Vatican. And it was just truly special to stand there with other world leaders looking on as the President Trump led the way.
Yes, another iconic shot and another iconic meeting for sure that President Trump led. Do you believe that Zelensky understands he's likely not going to get more land back?
Well, there's been a number of discussions of territory, of what they need to make sure that this war never continues, that it is permanent. We've talked to our European partners, who you saw the images of both Starmer from the United Kingdom and Macron from France, that Europe has to step up. I know that you have Ambassador Whitaker, our new NATO ambassador, who's fantastic, coming on talking about how the Europeans need to take the lead in the future. All of those things are key parts of the discussion with both Zelensky and with Putin. And next is to drive both sides of the table, but they both have to want it. And the president has expressed his frustrations in whether both sides genuinely want to end this war, but he is determined to have the United States of America and him. I'll just say this. The current leader of NATO, who was here this week, said only President Trump could break the deadlock that we saw 100 days ago under the Biden administration, and he's done just that, starting with his call with both Putin and Zelensky just a few months ago.
And, of course, President Trump tweeted or posted this as well. He writes in a post yesterday, there was no reason for Putin to be shooting missiles into civilian areas, cities and towns over the last few days. It makes me think that maybe he does not want to stop the war. He's just tapping me along and has to be dealt with differently. How will the president deal with Putin differently?
Well, you saw also in that truth, Maria, that he talked about potential action on banking, potential action on the oil and gas sector. But he's determined to use both carrots and sticks to get both sides to the table, indirect talks, talking about those items that we discussed to drive this to a permanent end with European-led security architecture.
Let me move on because we've got a lot to cover, and I do want to get your take. You just talked about the possibility of using banking against Russia. I want to get your take on what you're willing to do regarding China. The United States obviously has taken a tough stance against communist China, and the latest provocation is China has seized the disputed reef in the South China Sea. That's on top of the propaganda, on top of the surveillance, on top of the undermining from communist China. Will you pull any financial or economic levers, including yanking stocks from U.S. exchanges that are Chinese companies that are tied to the Chinese military?
Well, Maria, I'm not going to get ahead of our amazing economic team led by Secretary Bessent, Ambassador Greer, Lutnick, and others. But look, here's what the president's determined to do, and I'm looking at this from a national security standpoint. We have to bring our supply chains home. We saw even cheap items like mask gowns and gloves, if they're made abroad and not made here, become a national security issue. We have to have clean supply chains for our military equipment. Everything from manufacturing to shipbuilding, which he just had a fantastic executive order on, to critical minerals, as you mentioned, to chips, AI, quantum. If we can't have them here in the United States, which is absolutely the preference, we have to have access through our allies or even right here in our Western Hemisphere. That is a key element. Rebuilding our military under Pete Hegseth, Secretary Hegseth, focused on meritocracy and lethality, is a key element. And then, of course, working with our allies, and it's no accident that President Trump had Prime Minister Modi of India, had Prime Minister Ishiba of Japan, made calls to the Prime Minister of Australia and South Korea. All of those pieces are key elements of our competition with China that President Trump knows. We have to win through our markets, and we have to win through our strong economy.
Is the Ukraine
and that's
deal
how you avoid any conflict.
Is the Ukraine rare earth minerals deal going to get done?
Oh, the Ukraine deal is going to get done. The negotiators were working hard over the weekend. That is first and foremost on both Secretary Bessent and the president's mind. It's going to get done, Maria. President's determined to make it so.
Mike, let me just ask you about Pete Hegseth and the Defense Department. Can you do this in what appears to be a chaotic, weakened Defense Department? Pete Hegseth, of course, our defense secretary, has been threatening polygraph tests. He's been firing people who we thought were his allies. What is the state of affairs at the Defense Department right now?
Maria, I introduced Secretary Hegseth at his hearing. I've known him for years. You know what? Let me tell you about the soldiers, sailors, Marines that every day come up to me, come up to him. We just had wounded warriors in the office with the president that say, thank God for Secretary Hegseth. Thank God for President Trump as commander-in-chief. Just 100 days ago, we were more worried about DEI and climate change nonsense. Now we're focused on lethality and winning. That's been, in just over 3 months, the change. And what we owe is the best equipment that is on time, on budget, and lethal to those soldiers and sailors. I'll tell you, a Pentagon that was chaotic was one that had a defense secretary that disappeared for 2 weeks just last year, and nobody knew about it. Pete is leading from the front. He is leading the charge, and he has no tolerance for leaking.
How's he going to replace all those people so fast?
This is a media narrative that we are going to power through. What's that?
How's he going to replace all of those people so fast?
Maria, there's 20,000 people in the Pentagon. There is a record amount of generals. And the other piece there is accountability. We have had several general officers that weren't getting the job done, and admirals get fired and get replaced, including our great new chairman, Raisin Kane, who I just talked to last night. That's what that Pentagon needs. No one ever gets fired. There's never a sense of accountability. Now there is, and whether it's leaks or not getting the job done or failures in terms of procurement, acquisition, now you have a leader that's in charge, and I couldn't be prouder of Pete Hegseth.
I know that you have talked about China being the long-term threat, but short-term, it's Iran, isn't it?
Well, let's look at what the president has said. He has been crystal clear: no nukes, and he prefers a deal. And he prefers a Middle East that we saw in his first term getting back to the Abraham Accords. So borders secure, getting the Middle East back to peace, ending the largest land war in Europe, and competing with China in a very strong and tough way.
Absolutely.
That's what we're seeing in the first 100 days. All of that getting done, and it's been an honor to be a part of it. Yeah,
I mean, we know that last month 3 people tried to cross the border versus 4,000 a year ago. We
99% reduction.
Yeah, exactly. We know that is the president's
and taking on the cartels and kicking
in the first 100 days. It's great to see you this morning, sir. Thank you. National Security Advisor Michael Waltz. Thank you, sir.
How many Chinese spies are currently living in the U.S.? How safe are our military bases? Like and comment. And follow us on X @PatriotMediaGRP.